You know, it's always nice when an old friend drops by to talk about some good old times. But when that friend's Timothy P. Brown of footballarchaeology.com and he wants to talk about college football from over 100 years ago, you know you're in for a special treat. Tim joins us in just a moment to talk about a great aspect of old college football.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darren Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of pigskindispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And it is Tuesday, and we are happy to say that Timothy P. Brown of footballarchaeology.com has joined us once again to talk about another one of his great tidbits. Tim, welcome back to the Pig Pen.
Darren, thank you. Good to see you again. Hear your voice. Have the opportunity to chat a little bit.
Yeah, this is the football seasons are winding down in all of the leagues here. This coming weekend we have the Super Bowl coming up. We're actually recording this a couple weeks ahead of time, but we know who the participants are, and it's not so good for your neck of the woods. The Lions had a great season and just didn't work out their way at the end of the game of the NFC Championship.
Yeah, unfortunately, I grew up a Packers fan, and they bit us the week before, and then the Lions. So I don't know that I really care anymore about either team, either team that's in there.
Sometimes that's what makes it fun. If you have no vetted interest in it, you just sit back and hope for good football and enjoy the athletes and some of the great things that they do and what happens. And you're not worried one way or the other if something bad happens.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter, who grew up in Detroit but lives in San Francisco, she kind of couldn't lose in that game. So at least she's got a continued rooting interest, but not for me.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Well, paying players, these players in the NFL are getting paid quite a bit. And it sort of segues into what we're going to be talking about now. We know that now college players are getting paid with the NIL contracts and everything. But you have a story in one of your tidbits from a little while back where you talk about some players getting paid in college back almost 100 years ago. And maybe you'd like to discuss that with us today.
Yeah, well, I think the idea of paying somebody to participate in sports, and particularly at the college level, I mean that's as old as people, as long from the day that people said, "Hey, it's important for my college to beat your college." All from that moment, they started finding ways to make sure that good athletes attended this school or that school. And for a long, long time it was an informal process. There used to be like the banker in town would pay for a kid to go to college. If you happen to be a good athlete and you went to Old State U, that was great. But they're also like way back in the day, top student athletes often were like, they'd be like agents for cigar manufacturers or chewing gum manufacturers, anything that was sold on campus. And then if they could influence people's buying behavior, they got paid money, for that kind of thing. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff went on. And then obviously there were the easy or no show jobs that guys had as well. But so, I mean, there's always been kind of the under the table thing. And then in 1929, there was a big report. The Carnegie Foundation, did a report on college football, basically criticizing all of this underground payment, system, and having guys there who maybe weren't really the greatest students, etc. And so the funny thing about that, I mean, it was one of those things that kind of just ignored. I mean, the Great Depression started shortly after they issued the report, so people kind of had bigger problems to worry about. But there were a handful of people professors, folks directly involved in athletics who were come and saying we should pay these guys. They should get a percentage of the gate, or they should get. There was a guy at Missouri who said, the players should get $2 per hour for practice. Now that doesn't sound like much, but it'd be the same as $36 an hour today. Beer money, for a college athlete. And then there were a couple of student newspapers, Minnesota and UCLA, came out saying, hey, the football players in particular, they basically subsidize all other sports, which was true at most bigger schools at the time. And I've got documentation on that I'll probably put out in another tidbit. But so anyways, and then others were just arguing, like, football in particular, and then later on basketball and baseball, they were commercialized, they were professionalized in every way other than paying the players. The coaches got big time money. People had to pay money to attend the games. And then they started selling video rights, and then they started selling TV rights. So there were these pots and pots of money. So I mean, if you looked at a big time college athletic program, that is a pro program. It's run by professionals. In some ways, it's run for professionals, right?
Right.
And the only thing that wasn't, quote, professional about it was that the athletes didn't get paid. They got a scholarship, at bigger schools, and then eventually they'd get some spending money and, da da da, but nothing at all like what their actual market, power was. And so now that this NIL is out there, all of a sudden guys are, starting to make some pretty good money. Some guys are better off staying in college an extra year than
Right.
signing some, low level rookie contract. Now, obviously, then their pro contract, that clock starts, doesn't start clicking or, ticking for another year. But, if somebody tells me I can make whatever, $1 million through NIL, versus, whatever, 800,000 or whatever the current rookie contract is worth, you got to think about it. So it's just really, it's been a long time a coming, right? And like myself, I don't necessarily like some of the things the impact it's going to have on the game. But that's just a selfishness on my, whereas the kids deserve the money, just like artists or, musicians, or a kid who invents, writes a piece of software or whatever, TikTok sort of influencer, whatever, So anyways, it's one of those kind of funny things. That conflict has always been there, and now it's more or less out in the open. So I think that's good.
Yeah, because I mean, if it wasn't for the student athletes, people wouldn't be paying to go watch an empty football field or basketball court or whatever event they're going to. So yeah, those kids deserve it, and they work hard. And I was kind of surprised though. I knew when the NIL was coming out that players were going to be getting paid, but I had no idea they was going to be as lucrative for some of these folks as it is. I mean, I was astounded. The LSU gymnast, and I forget what her name is. She's on a couple commercials now, and she's a social influencer. She's making millions just by her likeness and image. So it's amazing.
Yeah. And, so some people are going to get that money based on, frankly, what they look like, right? Others, their personality, just their, obviously she had to be smart enough to, I mean, she's a very attractive young lady, but, she figured out the game and was doing some, she's, I mean, I've never watched her stuff, but I assume she's got to have a presence and delivery, whatever it is, right? So smart enough to take advantage of that and the situation she was in. So yeah, more power to her.
Yeah, definitely has a couple extra bucks left over after buying the school books each semester. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't even have to sell her school books to
Yeah.
the old days.
Right. Well, I mean, that's interesting that it's been around that long, that, the debate's been along for 100 years now. So that's
Yeah.
incredible. So that's why it's such a great read here in your tidbit. And you have some interesting things like this each and every night. And maybe you could share with the listeners how they too could partake in your daily tidbits.
Yeah. Yeah, easy enough. Just go to footballarchaeology.com and subscribe. It's free to subscribe. And then every night you'll get an email that basically provides the tidbit in the email itself. And then alternatively, if you don't want to do it that way, you can subscribe on Substack, or I should say, you can just visit on Substack whenever you want. You can follow me on Twitter or on Threads. So those are the three or four ways to do it. So whatever fits your fancy.
All right. Well, hey, Tim, we really appreciate you coming on here and sharing another one of these great stories of football and aspects of football of old that you really have big meaning in today's college football world. And we appreciate you. And folks, make sure you check out footballarchaeology.com. We have the links in the show notes to this tidbit, and it takes you into Tim's realm of archaeology.com, like you talked about. And Tim, we will love to talk to you again next week about another aspect of football.
Very good. Look forward to chatting again.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.